Here on the Colour of Country Life, we're checking in with the MP for Chaffey, Tim Whetstone, covering the Riverland, the Mid-Murray, etc. Tim, it's been a pretty frantic period. Have we faced off the worst of what the flooding had to offer?
Yeah, well, look, it has been a very frantic time, Ricky. I must say my electorate covers from the border all the way down to Mannum. And so I've had different levels of emotion, for quite a period of time now. So, the upper reaches of the river have seen the high flows and the peak go past, and we're now looking downriver to see what the impacts will be down there, particularly with the front line of defence being levee banks. We watch very nervously to making sure that they, while they're engaged, that they stay intact and we don't have any breaches, or we minimise breaches so that we can minimise the damage.
There was a whole lot of effort putting those levee banks in or reinforcing them pretty late. I want to be sensitive to the challenges communities are facing at the moment, but was it all a bit too little too late?
Well, look, I think if we had our time again, I think majority of the upper reaches or the upper council areas, I think they did a very, very good job. Well managed. They had the right people on the ground, and they made the decisions in a timely manner. As we work our way down the river, it would be only fair of me to say that that some of their levee banks potentially weren't such a levee bank; they were more of a flood bank, and we just saw that they were given almost like a lick of paint, and hopefully that would be all right. But we've seen some of those flood banks being breached, and that has caused considerable hardship. So I think we need to have a review of exactly what the way that we've managed it and what we've experienced, and I'm hoping that will be done in a timely manner. And let's be real about this, making sure that we don't have the same problems should we have another high river next year.
Exactly. Look, and it's no criticism necessarily of local councils, because it's a bit of a broken record here on Flow in the multiple states we cover. Councils are finding it hard to have the resources to actually do what's needed. I think in the case of Renmark Paringa Council, they'd been telling the state government for some time, we need to do some work on levies that did happen ultimately just at the last moment.
Yeah, that's right, Ricky. And I must say, I challenged the former Labor government back in 2012 when they told me to go away. And I think it was pertinent that we continued to work on the levee banks, the assessment, the engineers' reports on those banks. And I think that's paid dividends this year. And I would urge, everyone to just, recount what we've seen and experienced this flood event, and making sure that we do it better next time.
Now, I want to talk about roads in a minute, but just before we leave the topic of levees, some people, and a lot of people had gone to have a look, say at Murray Bridge or elsewhere in the Riverland, at what flooding was happening. People were encouraged to tour the regions, but some comments that were made was about maybe the companies, the earth movers, would be making a lot of money out of building these levees, but I understand there was a lot of goodwill, a lot of free effort put in by these people to actually save their communities.
Oh, there certainly were. And, it was great community spirit. Whether you're just a community-minded person or whether you're an earth-moving company, there were a lot of borrow pits, there were a lot of machinery, and there was a lot of manpower that were put on the ground at no cost to taxpayer. And, that's good community spirit. But in the scheme of things, both state and federal government had a significant role to play, making sure that the resources and the funding was put there so that councils didn't have to shoulder the burden or the uncertainty going forward. And I think it's worked pretty well. I think, we have to learn the lessons if we want to do it better next time. But as I've said to you, I take my hat off to every person that was involved in that front line of defence with their high flow and high rivers coming our way. And, by and large, I think we've done a very, very good job. We've had minimal breaches on levees. And if we look further afield, a lot of those communities in the higher catchment areas, they were acting very late. Admittedly, they didn't have the lead-in time. But what they did, I think, we would learn from our mistakes. We would learn, in some cases, the lack of planning. And I think, here in South Australia, I think we've been exemplars at having enough time to get everything in order and making sure that we minimised any damage or any impact of those flood waters.
Yeah, sorry, I did want to talk about roads in a minute, but there is also the thought that comes to mind, be it Waikerie or Kingston-on-Murray or indeed the Renmark Caravan Park, what were once idyllic views looking out over the water, you're now looking at a levee bank. What do you believe to be the plans? Are those levees going to stay, and what does that mean for those hospitality venues?
Yeah, look, that has been a real conundrum for particularly the caravan park owners, and we know that every caravan park owner on the river has faced significant challenges, and they'll now have to make some decisions on what they do, how they tidy up the aesthetics of the viewing the river, which is it's a $1 million view, and it's also a $1 million experience having the water right on the edge there of where you're camping or where you're staying. But I think those decisions will be made once the heat's gone out of the uncertainty. Living on the edge of the river, we understand the vagaries, but running a caravan park or a tourism business, though they are some of the challenges that we will face over the coming months, particularly making decisions on whether we remove those levees or whether we utilise them and beautify them, and looking to see if we can, making sure that we kill two birds with one stone, protecting our assets, but at the same time having people understand that they're there for a very good reason.
One of the recurring themes across our broadcast states, many of them river communities, has been this concept of building back better, so that whether it's roads, for instance, that got washed out by flooding, like we've got the Bookpurnong Road between Berri and Loxton, do we build it to a better standard? The Department of Infrastructure and Transport's Director of Road Maintenance told us this morning that he would be supporting a submission being made to the federal government to build that back better. Is that news to you? Is it something that everyone in the community says just has to happen?
Oh, I think it just has to happen. I know that there will be a lot of lobbying, and I'll be no different, making sure that both our state and federal colleagues are giving all of the the lobbying that we need to do and pitch to those departments, making sure that we get satisfactory funding to rebuilding our roads, making them better. Because it's not just the roads that have been inundated, it's also the roads that have now had significant pressure put on them as bypass roads. We know in the Riverland here, particularly between Loxton and Berri, the bypass road has been Stanitsky Road out of Berri to the Sturt Highway. Not only has that put pressure on the condition of that road, but it's also putting a significant pressure on the cost of living for those people, having to do, in some instances, an extra 8 hours travel a week, and every hour of travel is more fuel costs, and that takes away from the bottom line for that family or those road users. So I would say that we want to make sure our roads are better and better equipped, and whether we've got to put a causeway at Bookpurnong, that is yet to be played out, but I really do think that we do need to wait for the water to recede so we can assess what the damage actually is. I'm visiting a lot of my communities right from the border down to Mannum. There are some roads that are missing, some roads have collapsed, and some roads are still in reasonable shape. Once that water recedes, we'll understand the integrity of that road and just how much engineering needs to be put into it to reinstate it so that it's safe and good to use.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done, and not just on the local level on the ground, but also in Parliament advocating for your community. Tim Whetstone, the member for Chaffey, thanks so much for joining us today on Flow.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky.